My first and quite possibly only novel. There was a stack of copies on the bestseller table, and someone was even holding one, flipping through its pages. A woman in chic wedge heels and a floral wrap dress. I moved closer to the magazines, keeping an eye on the woman. There was something French about her. The red lipstick, maybe. Who seemed to be deciding whether Violets in Her Lap by Agnes Oliver was worth the hardcover price. She turned to the back flap, where my author photo lived, and I quickly looked away, letting my blonde hair fall into my face. Not that she'd recognize me. 2 months of being on the road, or rather in the air, meant bags under my eyes and yesterday's t-shirt. When I chanced another glimpse, I saw that she was getting in line, my book in hand. Again, my body reacted as if in conflict with itself. Relief flooded my limbs, but fear festered low in my gut. She was buying my book. Good. That meant she was going to read it. Good in theory, but what if she didn't like it? I grabbed a copy of The New Yorker and hurried to get in line behind her. I was immediately met by a wave of her perfume, surprisingly woodsy, like pine, white cedar, and water lily. For a moment, I was back in the woods, a child again, dangling my legs in the cool pond west of our house. I felt completely at ease. But then the sounds of the airport brought me back to the present. The woman paid, and when she turned to go, she looked at me and smiled politely. I thought about saying, "That's my book. I'm the author." But the moment passed and the woman was gone, taking the sense of my childhood with her. Had I ever imagined it would be like this, stalking readers in airports? No, of course not. But publishing Violets in Her Lap had been nothing like I'd expected. From the high 6-figure advance they'd given me for my fairy tale book deal, to the fact that I was still waiting to feel like I was everything everyone said I was, talented, original, a fresh voice. I was the first to admit I owed most of my success to Robert, my publicist. Robert was definitely a genius. He had convinced the media I was some kind of literary it girl. Big advance, a complete unknown, only 30 years old. And in no time, I was being featured in newspapers and magazines and on blogs and podcasts. People didn't only want to know about my writing, they wanted to know about me, my morning routine, my skincare regime, what I like to wear and eat and drink. Apparently, that's what was expected of young female authors these days. A lifestyle, a brand. I had to invent a skincare regime to be able to talk about it. I now had a toiletries bag stuffed with serums and moisturizers I almost always forgot to use. I hurried to pay for the magazine, afraid I would lose sight of the woman in the floral dress, my future reader. But outside the store, I spotted her walking down the wide airport concourse. She had stashed my book in her bag, no longer clutching it for all to see. I followed her for several minutes, keeping my distance, and then watched as she turned into a nail kiosk. Without thinking, I followed her inside. By the time I reached the kiosk, she was already seated before a manicurist, choosing her color from the polish options. She didn't look up when I entered. There were 4 manicurists working. I sat down in front of the one farthest away from the woman. What was I doing? I had no idea. A part of me hoped she would pull out my book and start reading. Then maybe I could see her reaction to the first few pages. Or maybe I just liked how she looked, the smell of her perfume. She seemed so feminine and put together. She definitely had a skincare regime, one she followed religiously. It intrigued me that she'd want to read my book. I was nothing like her. "What will you have?" the manicurist asked me. It took me a moment to understand the question. I'd never actually had a manicure before. I looked down at my nails, picked at and uneven. Could she even do anything with these? "A manicure?" I said, my voice croaky and hoarse-sounding in the white serenity at the kiosk. "Yes, but what kind? Gels?" I frowned. "Just the regular kind." "Color?" I looked sideways. The woman had chosen poppy red, bright and cheerful, bold. I searched for it in the display of bottles. "That one." I pointed. The manicurist nodded and immediately got to work. She started by clipping my nails, which surprised me. I always thought they were too short, but here she was making them shorter, evening them out. The woman I saw was not reading my book. Of course she wasn't. Her hands were occupied.